Okay, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. We will be recording today's meeting. For the members that weren't able to attend today due to being on site for the career fair, they will be able to access this at a later time. And one more reminder to please mute if you are not muted. Go ahead and do that now. And we are going to do our meeting a little backwards today and let our speaker start first. And I'm excited to introduce our speaker today. I think we're going to have an excellent session. Her name is Alyson Van Hooser. And so her bio, she is a leader and emerging professionals. And so I'm sorry, let me restart that. So leaders and emerging professionals need help reframing and redefining leadership in today's diverse, multi-generational workforce in order to be successful. And Alyson Van Hooser is on a sold-out mission to show them the way. Tough beginnings taught Alyson the radical power of an ownership mindset, one that transforms the trajectory of personal lives and leadership careers. Earning rapid success in the food, retail, finance industries, and as a city councilwoman, all by the age of 30, helped her discover the immense power that comes when leaders own the responsibility of truly understanding and intentionally connecting with the people they serve. Her books, Level Up and Accelerate Your Success, unveil powerful stories of lessons learned through struggles and practical strategies needed in order to be successful at home and at work. With these strategies in tow, teams everywhere can see the way to successfully work better together. Whether hearing Alyson's keynotes at a live or virtual conference, participating in her leadership development training programs, or listening to her podcast, Stake, the Leadership Podcast, her audiences return to work inspired to take ownership of their success and equipped with future-proof, practical, tactical strategies to level up the way they lead themselves, their team, and their entire diverse organization. In the end, Alyson's down-to-earth style hits you in the heart, opens your mind, and shows you the way forward. And I don't know if that gets you all excited about today's meeting, but it sure does me. So I'm so excited to turn it over to Alyson.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be with you all for several reasons, but I see some friends on here as you all are coming on. So hello to everybody that I've met before, and nice to meet you to everyone that I haven't had the opportunity to meet in person yet. I'm actually a West Kentucky woman. I'm from Princeton, Kentucky. So I'm in our studio today in our office in downtown Princeton. I want to thank you all for starting the meeting off, letting me go first, flipping what you had going on. I wanted to be sure that I could make it work and be with you all today. I have a client I have to get on the road no later than 10. As I was preparing for today, I had this phrase in my mind that I say in my house all the time. I have 4 kids, and there's a phrase that we use. We say, move quickly, but don't rush. And if we can move quickly, but don't rush, we won't make mistakes. And we won't forget the important things, whether it's on the way to school or whether it's a meeting today. I want you all to know that I am going to move very quickly today, but I'm not going to rush. I'm going to make sure that I get you all the information you need in order to leave this session, leave the career fair, and be able to go back and implement what we talk about today. The focus of today, if you read the description and you're attending only because you knew what we were talking about today, I'll just reiterate that the focus of today is thinking about your high-performing employees or the people that you see that you have a lot of potential or that they have a lot of potential. The goal today is to give you a practical step-by-step process that you can number 1, implement yourself, but then number 2, go teach to the leaders in your organization so that they then can engage their high performers in a way that make them want to stay, that equip them to perform better. There are a couple of you that I see that we've done long-term leadership training with. And you know that when we talk about the empowerment process, we typically spend 4 hours diving into this, and I've got you all for about 40 minutes. So I will hit the high points, but I want you to know that, especially because you all are local, I care about your success. I want you to be successful. So if at any point you have a question or something specific that I could help with, please send me an email after this and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. We won't necessarily have time to dig into those questions in this situation, but I'm more than happy to follow up with you. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to start by talking about involvement and engagement. Oftentimes, the goal of leaders in today's world, you hear it, it's a buzzword, is to get high employee engagement. And we believe that if we can get engaged employees, then we increase our retention. And if our employees are engaged, then they'll go out and tell the workforce how amazing it is to work here. And then we'll be able to recruit even better people along the way. And I would say, yes, that's true. Amen to that. However, oftentimes we get wrong what employee engagement actually is. I'll share with you all a story. If you don't have kids, you might think that you don't understand exactly what I'm talking about when I share this story. But if you once were a kid, which I think every person in this room can check that box, then you will know exactly what I'm talking about, whether you're thinking about your own siblings or you're thinking about someone on the playground at school. I'm doing a virtual session today. I've been doing leadership development training for about 4 years. And prior to 2020, I did 0 virtual training. And now, after moving through the pandemic, like you all, this has become our new normal, our next normal. Thinking about what life was like during the pandemic, I would have multi-hour trainings. And you have to be a really good communicator to keep people engaged that long. But these multi-hour trainings, I would do these, and I had my 4 kids at home. They are right now, they are 10, 8, 5, and 1. So they were even 2 years younger, one in my belly, even at one point during the pandemic. But I still had to work. Like many of you, life was still moving forward, even though we were confined to our home and the kids were doing homeschool or were doing virtual school. So whenever I had a training program, I would get the baby settled, and then I would take the older 3 and I would let them play with their favorite toy. And in our house, even with the different age ranges, the favorite toy still to this day is Legos. They all love them. They all enjoy playing with them. So we have these yellow totes of Legos. I would give the older 3, Willow, Lincoln, and Duke, I would give them their tote of Legos and send them off to the front of the house where we have this large farmhouse style table. And they could dump out these huge totes of Legos and have thousands of blocks to play with. And it would keep them occupied for a pretty long time. And I would know at some point in the training that it was time to take a break, because my kids would give me a sign. Someone would start yelling, "Mom!" And that was my sign that, okay, everybody, it's time for us to take a short 10 to 15 minute break. I'll see you all back here soon. And I would turn off the camera, turn off the sound, and go into the living room. I knew what I would find in the living room. I knew exactly what it was because this happened over and over. Sometimes you have to treat kids the same way. Sometimes we have to treat employees. We have to tell them something over and over before it actually sticks, before they move forward differently. That was the same thing with these kids. I knew what had happened. The older 2, if you can imagine, all 3 kids sitting on the same side of the table. We have the older 2 right here. And my kids, don't judge me, but my kids love to build jails. I don't know why. We do not watch anything about jails on YouTube or Netflix. You feel it? I don't know, but that's what they love to build. They'll bring me in and they'll say, "Mom, look, this cell has a toilet and a sink." Or now, look, we can build 3 levels. Strange. I know. It is what it is. They love to build them, and they'll build them tall, multi-levels. And Duke, he was 3 or 4 around the time. He's sitting at the other end of the table, and he's playing with his Legos too. But he's new to this. So at 3, 4, 5 years old, he can build things like a really tall tower that maybe he'll turn into a gun or something like that. That's the highest level of skill he has at this point. So while they're playing, if I could be a fly on the wall, I would be able to see them, Willow and Lincoln over here, building these elaborate structures, having fun, and Duke over here building something very simple. Duke is admiring Willow and Lincoln, thinking, "Man, that looks so cool. They're laughing, they're having fun." And they'll say to him, he'll ask if he can build with them, and they'll say, "Duke, you're doing a great job. Like, yes, we're so glad you're in here. Keep building. Wow, look what you did," trying to encourage him. And that would work for a little while. He would be excited, like, "Yes, I did it. I built this. What else can I do?" And he would go along with it for a little while. But eventually, After continuing to look at the people who are working on what he considered to be the more fun projects, the things that he really wanted to be a part of, and them encouraging him, but ultimately telling him, no, you can't be a part of this, he gets frustrated. And so in true Duke form, and he's actually in the building today, and I have sent him to a room and locked the door, said, don't come out. He's here today. But in true Duke form, he would stand up on that table and walk over to their Legos and just kick them off. Boom, everywhere. And of course, my older kids, that's when they start yelling, Mom! And we had to go to a break on the virtual programs. I go in there and I start talking with my big kids and I say, you all have heard this before. I'm going to say it again. You all have involved Duke, but you have not engaged Duke. My house sounds like a really fun place to be, right? When you're talking to 5-year-olds about involvement and engagement, but it's who I am now. I tell them, you all have involved Duke, but you have not engaged Duke. You let him play with the Legos. You let him have a small piece of what you're trying to do. Yes, you let him even sit on the same side of the table. Oftentimes we'll have employees, we'll invite them to the meeting. We'll give them a small piece of the project. We'll let them have an opportunity to go here or do this. We will involve them. But for our high performers, if they're still looking down the table, if Duke is still looking down the table and saying, man, I wish I could work on that. What do I have to do to get there? And they keep asking and they keep showing you that they're trying, they're building, they're getting better. Then eventually Duke is going to be frustrated because you have not engaged him. Your employees will do the same thing. If you do not engage them, if they're only involved, then you might one day have an employee who they might not necessarily or physically stand up on the table and wipe out everything that you're doing, but it could be that, now they have a seat at the table and they're not going to speak up anymore, or they're not going to go all in like they used to. Because for the past, you name the time frame for your situation, your employees, they've been involved. They've been trying to work to develop their skills to get better, but you have not allowed them to build with you for whatever reason. Maybe because you're afraid they would mess something up and it would take you longer to fix, or it would take you longer to teach than you feel like you have. But I would ask you as leaders, and that's exactly what you all are in this room, what is the goal? If the goal is for us to get by, then maybe involvement is accomplishing that very thing. But if the goal is for us to build a team that continues to improve, continues to perform better, to hold on to our best employees, then we must engage them. It's important that we don't get wrong or don't confuse employee involvement and engagement. Now, before I leave that, you must know that an employee, I would encourage you all to think for a moment, who on my team, who is involved? Well, who is not involved? Who can you tell is just showing up and they are checked out? There's a term for that now. You all are probably familiar with it, quiet quitting. They're just showing up, doing the bare minimum. What do I have to do to get by? So who is not involved, but then who is involved? But then who do you as a leader need to take from involved to engaged? I'm going to give you a process to do that very well today. I mentioned that you all are leaders. And oftentimes when I say the word leader, I do leadership development. And when I say leader, if I were to ask you all one-on-one, what exactly is a leader? You would probably all give me some variation of a definition, your interpretation of what it means to be a leader. If I ask Google, what define leadership? It'll give me over 3 billion answers, or at least it would have a few days ago, maybe more now. What I know is that if you type that in, the very first bullet point you will see, still to this day, and you would think that this would be old school and out of the way, but it still says position. Leadership is a position. And when you all think about that, or when I think about that, I want to say to you all, position doesn't make someone a leader. You can be the director of HR in your organization. You can be the CEO of an organization. You can be promoted into leadership or into management or supervision. But title alone doesn't make you a leader. Now, do I respect that? Do people oftentimes respect the work that it takes to get there? Absolutely. But you can be a manager and supervisor, and people will go along to get along as long as they have to until they find something better, whether it's $1 down the street or a new opportunity in a new community. If you're not leading and engaging your people and effectively empowering your people, you'll continue to see the consequences of that when it comes to retention and performance, engagement, your culture. I want to redefine leadership with you all today. I'm going to share my screen here if I have permission to do that. I want to redefine this for you. My hope is that in redefining this, that it'll redefine it for you, give you clarity on how to move forward when we're trying to create both an involved and engaged team. But hopefully this is also a definition that you take back to your people. What I know in working with organizations across industries, across the country, is that the most successful organizations will be those who create leaders at every level of the organization. Every level. From day one, we should be teaching people, you can be a leader here. It is a choice. I'll show you how to do that now, but it is a choice, and every person in our organization should show up as a leader. When I say that, someone might think, we can't have too many chiefs. We need some Indians. That's a totally different analogy than what I'm speaking about when it comes to leadership. The leadership definition I'm going to give you is an adaptation from the definition that my father-in-law, Phil Van Hooser, developed. Some of you all may know him. He's been doing leadership development for over 3 decades. In studying today's workforce and using my own professional experience for 10 years in the workforce, working in multiple industries and at all levels of an organization, from entry level to an executive level, what I know is that there are a lot of good people out there doing good work, trying to serve their people. Servant leadership, John Maxwell made that popular about 20 years ago. We know that we're supposed to, if we want to be leaders, show up and serve our people, but we have good people with good intentions, exhausting their resources and not getting the results they want. I'll show you why through redefining leadership. We said the first part of the definition is leadership is not position. We have to get that out of the way. So as soon as we bring someone into our organization, even if they're entry level, that they understand that they can be a leader. That if we have someone at the top of the organization or a mid-level supervisor, that they know that they can be a leader, but if they're not showing up the right way, then they very well may only be a manager. The first part of this definition, when we say the how, give me the how, Alyson, is leadership is the ability to serve the need. I know 2 people on here, I think, maybe more, joined me at the Paducah Young Professionals event a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to share a story I shared there, because for the other 98% of you who have not heard this story, it is my intentional goal to share this story with you, because you may leave here and not immediately remember this definition word for word, but I bet you'll remember this story. As leaders, we should be sharing stories, because those are what create the memorable moments for our leadership. Those are what help the information stick as we move forward. The definition, you'll see the word "the" is circled in red. I'm a word nerd. If you know me, I'm a word nerd, which is why I'm using the words involve and engage with my young children, because it matters what words you use. And I've seen where people have thought to insert the word serve a need, but that's where we get leadership wrong in today's world. We have to serve the need. Our people show up and they all have lots of different needs. You have different needs for even coming on this call. You may have a need to learn. You may have a need to be seen. You may have a need to feel included. You are the only person at this point who knows your need for being here. Your employees are the same way. They have needs to earn a paycheck. They have needs to learn, to grow. They have needs to feel like they belong, like they are heard, like they are respected. And all of our employees' needs are different, and they're different post-COVID. And as leaders, we have to make the time. I think our biggest challenge is to make the time to get to know our people. We can't assume that their story is like ours, that they think like us. We have to serve the need if we want them to show up in a different way. If we want to get the reward of them showing up in a different way, better performance, better attitude, more engagement, loyalty. A teacher helped me see that a long time ago. I grew up in a house where my mom left whenever I was just a baby. I don't know why she left. I often get that question. I don't know why she left. I do know she still lives in Kentucky, but we're not close. I grew up in a house with my dad and my older brother and my younger sister. My dad, if you hear me say anything, I want you to hear me say he is a good man. So I'm going to share some things he struggled with, but I want you to hear me say that he is a good man, and we all have things that we struggle with. For my whole life, my dad has struggled with addiction to drugs and alcohol. He would be home, but he was never really home. Whenever growing up, I would go to school for two reasons. I would go to school for free food and safety. I grew up very poor. We lived on food stamps and government assistance that would come at the beginning of the month. But when that check would come in, when those food stamps would come in, my dad had other priorities than feeding us and taking care of us. He had an addiction to feed. So as soon as that money would come in, it was almost all gone. I went to school for food and for safety. I didn't know what to expect in my house. I didn't know who was going to be there, if people were going to be fighting it. I won't even fill in all of those gaps for you now, but school was a safe place for me. My third grade teacher, Miss Christy Conger, some of you all may know her since I'm in a local area. I like to say that there are no words this side of heaven for Miss Conger. From the moment I remember entering her classroom, that was such a memorable year. I'm in third grade, elementary school. I remember her room smelled like red Starburst all the time, which is very different than my house. My house did not smell like that. I remember feeling like, man, this is a place that I can relax. And Miss Conger, I remember she was always asking us about our life. What do you do when you get off the bus? Who's there when you get home? What do you do whenever you all eat dinner? Do you eat around the table? Do you sit in front of the TV? What'd you do last night? How was this weekend? Are you going to do anything over the break? She was always trying to get to know us, sometimes in a public way, but oftentimes in a very private, personal way. She had a way of making you feel really important. Miss Conger comes to me one day at school and she whispers in my ear. She says, let me get this microphone off. She says, Alyson, do you want to stay after school and I'll fix your hair? And now I'm looking on here and I see somebody with no hair. So let me just say, hold up. I'm about to tell a story about hair. And you may not get this from a hair perspective, but I have no doubt that you'll get this from a heart perspective. When Miss Conger said, stay after school, do you want to stay after school and I'll fix your hair? My very first thought was, I didn't even realize it was picture day because my family couldn't afford the pictures or the yearbook or an outfit. No, nobody was at home making sure that I had on a clean shirt or that my hair was fixed. Picture day wasn't even on my mind. So that was a surprise. But then the next thought was, oh my gosh, this could be my year, the year that I do have the picture, the outfit, the hair. I could be like the other girls. And my immediate answer to her, all of this was going through my mind so fast, was yes. So I go to school, I go home, come to school the next day. Afterwards, the bell rings. She takes me by the hand and we go around behind her desk. And, you know, normally when you go behind the teacher's desk, something is wrong. Somebody's in trouble. But that day I wasn't in trouble. I was special. I remember we sat there. First, my chair turned towards hers, looking each other eye to eye, and she pulled out this plastic bag of green, pink, blue, yellow foam rollers. Maybe some of you all remember those from the 1900s. She pulled out these rollers, and we talked about what she was going to do, how it was going to look, and the process for making this happen. And I turned around, and for the next probably 15 minutes, she rolled my natural hair color, strawberry blonde. You can see not natural anymore, but she rolled that long, stringy, strawberry blonde hair up in the rollers. And the entire time, she talked with me. I remember very vividly that she had some of her teacher friends come by the classroom. And as they opened her door, went to say hello, she shut them down. Hey, I'm with Alyson right now. I'm going to be sure to just talk with her. I'll catch up with you later. She made sure that I knew I was the most important person in the room. She didn't check her watch. She didn't look behind me. She didn't check her email. She was focused on me. That doesn't happen very often in the workplace, does it? We're having a conversation with somebody and there are distractions everywhere. Miss Conger focused on me. Remember her again, trying to get to know my story. And it's because she did that all along that she knew that I had a need. She knew that there was nobody at home. She knew that she could watch me and see that I admired the other girls in the room. She had probably seen other kids from her experience show up on picture day and not have the same experience as other kids. And she was compassionate enough to do something about it. She was a teacher, but she chose to be a leader. On the way home, I remember her whole demeanor changed. She went from being so sweet and kind to very serious and stern. And she said, I'm riding in the car looking at her thinking, oh, what is going on? She said, Alyson, when you take these rollers out in the morning, she knew nobody would be there to help me because she knew my story. So she walked me through exactly how to pull these rollers out, because if you don't pull those sponge rollers out in just the right way, you are going to rip every hair from your head. So I listened intently. I made mental notes of what to do. As a kid on Christmas morning would do, I was the first one to bed the night before, the first one up in the morning. I rushed into the bathroom, pull these rollers out. My hair is more curly than it has ever been in my life. I'm 7 or 8 years old. I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, Alyson, like an Herbal Essences commercial. Yes, yes, yes. Thinking like, I have to make this stick. So I need, what do people use to make their hair stay? Because I've got about 4 hours until picture time. So my dad, at that point, he was rocking the mullet. If you remember, Billy Ray Cyrus was big at that time. Don't tell my heart, my achy, breaky heart. That was huge. The mullet was popular. And I remember my dad, he wasn't even, business in the front, party in the back. His was more like party all over. And so I remember he had it spiked up with blonde tips on top. And I remember in that moment, looking in the mirror, my hair big and curly, thinking, if he can get his hair to stay like that, I can get my hair to stay like this. So I started digging around in the cabinet under the sink, and I found firm hold mousse. And I thought, well, yes, the Lord provided manna from heaven. This is what I need. I take that mousse and I squirt it in my hand. And if you've ever used mousse as an adult, you know that you should squirt it in your hand and it puffs up like shaving cream. I was a little kid. Nobody was helping me. I didn't know this. So I'm squirting that mousse in my hand and it just puddles like water. And so I'm cupping it, getting as much as I can. And I just start smearing it on my hair, making sure that I get it root to tip, you all. I need this to stay. I go back to that mirror, expecting to see va va boom like I did before. But when I look in the mirror, I look like a wet dog. As you can imagine, I just stuck that curly hair straight to my head. It was ruined. But I have to tell you, my initial thought was not, oh, picture day, I ruined everything. Instead, it was Miss Conger. She spent her time, her money on me, and I just messed it up. How is she going to react? So I get on the bus. What else can I do? I have to go to school. I get on the bus. I take what I thought was the walk of shame down the 3rd grade hallway, knowing that when I turn the corner, Miss Conger is going to be where she always is, standing right by her door. So I take a breath and I turn that corner and I see Miss Conger. And she pauses for a moment. Now I know she was shocked at what she saw. She wasn't expecting that. But I remember she instantly threw open her arms and said, Alyson, you look so beautiful. And that was a transformational moment for me. It redefined how I define leadership. Because before I was going to school for food, for safety. But from that moment forward, Ms. Conger served the need for me to feel included, to feel seen, to feel like I mattered. And that changed the way I show up. I started showing up to learn more, to be better for her. How can I be the smartest in the class so she'll be proud? What else can I do to make a good test score? Because I knew that was important to her. I had a need to learn obviously. She did a great job at teaching me my multiplication tables and how to comprehend what I'm reading. But it wasn't until she served the need that I actually showed up and went all in with her on her goals. Think about your employees. What is their need right now? In a world that's more stressful than ever, what do they need from you in order to transform the way they show up? And it might be different for one employee than it is the next. It likely will be, which is why I say the challenge to uncover those needs is probably the biggest leadership challenge, because it takes time to uncover those needs, to get employees to be honest with you, open with you, and to get them to trust that when they say something, you'll actually take action. The second part of that definition is the choice to take action. Ultimately, what I'm going to share with you all today, I told you all Duke was here. Duke is now trying to get in. I'll get back with you in a minute, Duke. I'm sorry about that, you all. So the choice to take action, this process I'm going to give you today, all of you all have a choice to do something with this process, to implement it or not. My question is, will you? I'm going to pause for just a second. Hold on.
You are totally fine. You're totally fine.
I'm so sorry. One second.
Fine. It's fine.
Sorry, you all. I'm so sorry, you all. Back to it. This is about you all, not about Duke. We're about to dig into this process. If you would like a copy, or if you would like this slide that I'm going to share with you all, you can text leader to 66866, and I will email it to you by the end of the day today. The six levels of empowerment is a detailed process. I've shared stories with you all so far to illustrate these points. But what I'm about to share with you is very nitty gritty. I always say, we've laughed and had a good time right now. We've hopefully shifted your perspective. Now I'm going to give you a tool. It's not glitter and glam and exciting, but it is extremely practical. So I'm going to work through these line by line, and you'll be able to see clearly how to move forward. It's important that you know that each step of this process is extremely intentional. You are going to develop their skills all along the way. And it's important for you to know that this is task-based. This is not an overall employee empowerment strategy. It is intentional for helping them develop the skills needed for them to perform at a higher level. So without further ado, let's dig in. The very first level of empowerment is, let me back up here. I'll just leave them both up there. Number one, if you are taking notes, you will write down, think of these 6 levels as you saying this to an employee. The first thing you will say once you've identified the task that you want to teach, develop their skills, help them learn and grow, this is where you take the conversation to them, where the rubber meets the road. The very first thing you will say to them is, you have this responsibility, you take it to them. Make sure you communicate that the goal here is to empower them. There is a difference in delegation and empowerment. We don't have time to dig into this today, but delegation, think of it as it comes before empowerment. You must first delegate, then empower. Delegation is also for the benefit of the organization. It is for your benefit. If you are delegating something to someone else so you can focus on something more strategic, that is delegation. Empowerment is for the benefit of the organization, but the focus is really on the benefit of the employee, their learning, their growth. So step number one, you say to them, all right, here's this task. The first thing I want you to do is research everything you can about this task, this responsibility, or this project. I want you to show your work all along the way. Think of back in high school math, or they would have you show all of your work so that if you made a mistake, they could identify how you got there. The hope is that whenever they bring you their research, that they've shown their work, that if there is a mistake, or if they didn't realize there were other resources they could tap into, or people they should reach out to, that then you as a leader can help them develop the research skill. The basic skill that we need in a workforce that I hear all the time from leaders like you that people don't have. This is your opportunity to develop that on the front end. So they bring you your research. You've asked them to report the information to you. You then have the opportunity to teach them how to be a better communicator, to even teach them how you want them to interact with you. How do you want the information? How do you want it presented? When do you want it presented? What do they need to give you beforehand? What do they need to give you in the moment? How do you want them to follow up? Again, through empowerment, it is not to be confused with encouragement. Empowerment is developing their skills so that they can in turn reach their goals. But ultimately, with this first level of empowerment, there's no risk. You hold all of the decision-making power. So you tell them, I want you to do the research. I want you to report the information that you find to me, but ultimately I'm going to make the decision here. And once you're comfortable with someone's research skills and their communication skills, that's when you move to step number 2, to level number 2. There are very fine differences between each level. You'll see that here. Level number 2, you go to them and you say, I want you to do the research again. And the burden is off of you a bit because now you've developed that research skill. I want you to report the information. Again, the burden is off of you. You develop that skill in level number 1. But here, you ask them to suggest an idea to be implemented. So here you're going to see their decision-making skills. Are they where they need to be or not yet? Is this an opportunity for you to help them learn to make better decisions? Because that is a skill. It is a skill necessary for someone to move up and take on more responsibility in an organization. And if you can't trust that they know how to make sound decisions in their current role, it's our job as leaders to develop them to serve their need. But ultimately, again, the risk is so low with level 2. You're still saying, I will decide. I have the final say. So there's no risk for them. There's no risk for you. You two are working together to develop skills to help them be better for themselves and for the organization. Then we go on to level number 3. Level number 3 says, you research, you report what you intend to do because you've worked with them already on their communication and decision-making skills. But finally, you wait for my approval. This is where you give them some freedom to move forward, to say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. There's not a lot of decisions, and all you need to do is basically check it off the list. Say yes or no. There's not a lot of discussion. You're giving them the opportunity to sort of almost dip their toe in the water when it comes to the risk. But still, they are not assuming full risk. You're still holding their hand a bit through this process. And there may be some people who think, I shouldn't have to hold their hand. I like to say, you can roll your eyes or roll up your sleeves. And I believe the most successful leaders will be those who choose to roll up their sleeves, who choose to do the work, who will hold a hand if it needs holding in order to help a person become better. That's where you start getting people who want to stay longer, go all in, and do better for both you and the organization. Small differences in each level, but at each level, you're walking them through the process of developing skills and taking on more risk. Level number 4, you researcher. Again, you're saying this to your employee. You do the research, report what you intend to do. And this is all about communication. Go ahead, unless I say no or otherwise. And you may think, what's the difference in 3 and 4? Wait for my approval unless I say no or otherwise. Number 4, you're letting them move forward unless you say no. If you don't communicate level number 4 very clearly, you might have somebody who, if you go to them and you say, hey, I know I told you to do this, but things have changed and we have to stop. You cannot move forward. If you have not communicated level 4 very well, then you will likely have an employee who is wildly frustrated by you, that you are holding them back or you're not letting them make progress. It's important for you to help them understand that you have access to other information or to other decision makers in the organization. You may get guidance from people above you who suddenly they say, hey, this happened in the economy. We're not going to be able to spend this amount of money. I need you to stop everything. Ultimately, you're opening the door for there to be change, and you're communicating that it can happen at any time. The best leaders are the best communicators. Level number 4 helps you accomplish that. Level number 5, This is where they're taking on the majority of the risk now. Level number 5 is where most people feel most comfortable when it comes to employee empowerment. You research, you take action, and report what you did. You have delegated a task to an employee, and you are at level number 5. So now they're able to move forward with this task, and they will submit to you a monthly or quarterly report on what they did, how it worked out, what went well, what didn't go well, what did they accomplish. But ultimately, it's all done by the time it gets to you. Hopefully, by now you've developed their research skills, their communication skills, their decision-making skills in order for them to perform effectively at level number 5. Level number 5, again, is where most leaders feel comfortable, but there's one more level. It's the most advanced level. This is where you say, go do the research, take action. You don't have to communicate with me anymore about it. It's done. You are free to move forward as you see fit. You will get no further communication from that employee about this responsibility. And this, I say this is task oriented, not an overall employee, because there may be one task that an employee does that you're cool with them being at level 6, but there could be another task that you want them to stay at level 5. You want to be sure that you have a handle on what's going on, that they're submitting reports to you, and that's okay. But it's also freeing for them and for you, for them to be able to move forward and not have to do a lot of reporting back. Now, levels of empowerment. I will take this opportunity to open it up for questions. I'll just reiterate one thing. Your employees, we talked about defining leadership. They have needs that are all different. You may have employees right now that say, I need you to give me something else to do from a work perspective, or I'm going to go find another job. This process works for you. You may have an employee that says, I need to feel like you care about my success. This process can work for you and shows you how to put your arm around them and take them along the way, to not just encourage them, but to equip them. My question to you all is, and I say this to you as a friend, as a colleague, is who's going to implement this? All of you can, but there will be people who you come back to your next meeting who do or who don't. And I have no doubt, because this process has been taught over 3 decades, that those of you who do, over time, as you work through those levels, you will see positive results. It is my hope that our time together has been perspective shifting from you from a leadership standpoint. Maybe you need to better identify the needs of your people, get to know your people better so that you can serve them better. And it is my hope that this process is so practical that you can already picture in your mind who and what and how you're going to implement it. Thank you all for your time today. Again, if you need anything from me, please shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions or help you walk through any challenges you are dealing with. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today. We definitely appreciate that, and definitely some practical words of wisdom that we can use, and some tools that we can help to empower those around us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being cool about Duke coming in unexpected. But I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great day. I can't wait to meet you all in person soon. See you all.
Thank you, Alyson. Okay, and next up on our agenda today, we just have just a moment or two, just a couple of things to discuss. I'll only take a minute or two of your time today. But just a couple of things I wanted to bring up is that we're currently at 63 members, which is a few years prior to pre-pandemic levels. So we're absolutely doing fantastic on membership. Our summer membership drive was very successful. So thanks to everyone who referred people to be members. This is an excellent group to be able to network with local HR professionals, and that is In my opinion, that is our number one selling point, if you will, is that we have a tremendous network here. And then speaking of networking, so there's two great events coming up. First is next week, the Kentucky SHRM Conference. So I'll be there. I know Crystal Ballantyne will be there. We have a few others a few other members that I know of that'll be there. If you all are going to be at the Kentucky SHRM Conference next week, I believe in the newsletter that came out yesterday or probably yesterday, I think, there is a link in there where you're able to show that you'll be there. We're hoping to put something together where we can meet up with some of our local members. And then in addition to that, another networking event coming up on September 27th, in lieu of having our monthly chapter meeting. We're going to be having an in-person meeting on September 27th from 2 to 3:30 at the Paducah Innovation Hub. And that's going to be our annual member awards meeting, as well as we have a speaker coming in from the Kentucky SHRM State Council that will be on site. And then it's going to be a great time. We're going to get to tour that facility. I know last year we heard from Steve Eberzabel, who is the principal there at the Paducah Innovation Hub, and we did that one virtually. And so I'm excited to be able to see that place in person and see the great work they're doing there. If you need continuing education credit for today's session, that is in the chat. And then reminder that this session today was so that will be available in the coming days. So I don't believe we have any other business. If there is no other announcements, then that's all we have for you today. For those of you that are on site today at the job fair, I wish you the best of luck and hope that you all find candidates and everything to fill your open positions. Are there any announcements or anything to be made? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so with no other announcements, we'll go ahead and close out. Thank you all so much for your attendance today. Thank you.